Well, so I think, look, let's be honest. We've got two middle-aged white men here discussing how to empower women, which is probably the most condescending and patronising conversation any woman out there is going to be listening to. But why are we doing it? The world needs women to be leading. I mean, if we look at the world today, we look at the geopolitics, we look at sustainability, we look at climate, we look at water and resources. Men, by and large, have been in charge of all of those things for decades, if not centuries. And the world is a mess.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another amazing segment of Publicity Hand, where we really got the goods here, the real information. You know, you want to learn about billion-dollar companies, you want to learn how to build a billion-dollar business, you want to meet the unique people with the ideas, the contacts, the whole bit. This is the place to be. I've got another amazing guest today. He's the coach's coach. He really is. He's known as the billion-dollar coach, the growth pioneer, and many other things. He's got amazing stuff to say. And you're here today, Mr. James Dakin, good friend of mine. This is a great one, guys, because you're here today. It's a very controversial one. What are you here today to talk about, James?
Well, there's two things. There's my life's purpose and mission. It's to help over 100 million people globally to change their life for the better. The context of that is by believing in themselves more, so they truly believe who they are. And the title that I think you're referring to is the talk and the program that I've created, which is for women, which is entitled How to Stop Taking Shit from Insecure Men.
Let me just say that one again here. How to stop taking shit from insecure men. Now, this guy, guys, you know, he done some really high-level brand development for some massive companies. We're talking Virgin Atlantic, all of these kind of guys, right? This guy's got a wealth of experience. But I have to say, I love this one, just for the ladies, right? Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, I've grown up with women all of my life, and I've coached and worked with thousands of people all over the world. And yet, the thing that I hear more than anything else when I'm working for businesses especially, certainly big business, is that there's no parity for women, that there's no women in the boardroom, that there's no equality of pay. That's relatively should be straightforward to deal with, but it isn't. But then we get into the really more exciting things, which men don't hear me, men don't see me, men don't take me seriously. Why don't men listen to my ideas? And these are the much more subtle, unspoken areas that we, men, generally don't see. Certainly we of men of a certain age, because we grew up in the 70s and 80s, where this was just normal. I mean, this was just normal. We didn't know that it was sexist, misogynistic, unhealthy, unpleasant, unhelpful, that it was normal. And it's been what we've had to learn, those of us that are prepared to learn. And my family were the people that suffered first, so I saw firsthand what abuse can do from men. And then just the women that I've worked with throughout my life. And the thing which began to strike me after all these years, Stephen, was how small women were playing. Now, what I mean by that is these were powerful, brilliant, amazing, highly intelligent, experienced, skilled women, brilliant women who had just accepted that they had to hit the dimmer switch on their life, the dimmer switch on their intelligence. Why? Because they didn't want the men to feel uncomfortable above them. They didn't want the men to feel threatened. They didn't want to feel as though their job might be threatened if they spoke up and they spoke out. And so they've accepted a life of playing smaller than they are. So now with the Me Too movement, and there are people all over the world, the Oprah Winfreys of this world, who have been championing women their entire life, and they've been sort of the torch bearers and the Michelle Obamas of this world, extraordinary women. I've discovered that my upbringing has put me in the most perfect place to be able to help women grow, become much more of who they are in the corporate context to begin with, and how to speak man, how to help get the message to their male counterparts or their male superiors in a way that just speaks to how the men want.
That's an interesting one. Women, teaching women to speak men, but it's, without sacrificing their femininity, which is a big thing with women. I mean, we have to say women are brilliant. If you're a guy of any standing, any stature, any depth or experience, you'd have to say women are brilliant. Different species, think different, carved different, woven different. This is nature's way. But for the wise, and for the people who want to be really successful, happy, progressive, quality of life, and get the best out of it, the juice out of it, it's obviously about looking at the best of it. The best of women, right? And the best of men. Now, in the middle there, I can certainly say my experience of life, been through many things, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I always say, right, I've seen it, to the bottom, to a very, very high level. But I will say that there is something there as well in that compatibility. I know how hard this can be, right? But in that compatibility of masculine, feminine, you get that right, there's a massive magic in there. Massive magic in there of transformation, of building massive things, of happiness, all of the stuff that brings. That elevation of energy, right? That is amazing. There's nothing like it. It's like a code. Very difficult to get right, I'll have to say, my own experience, but I know that that's there. So what would you say about that kind of stuff?
Well, so I think, look, let's be honest. We've got two middle-aged white men here discussing how to empower women, which is probably the most condescending and patronising conversation any woman out there is going to be listening to. But why are we doing it? Well, we do need women. The world needs women to be leading. I mean, if we look at the world today, we look at the geopolitics, we look at sustainability, we look at climate, we look at water and resources. Men, by and large, have been in charge of all of those things for decades, if not centuries. And the world is a mess. And you have to ask why. And is it because women are better than men or men are better than women? No. Together we are the most united, together we're the most creative, together we're the most beneficial. But we're not together because there is this gap, there is this divide. And it's the patriarchy in men that have got themselves into the ascendancy at the expense of women, and I think the world is suffering for it. My upbringing, the reason I can speak with a degree of authority or integrity on this topic, is because I've grown up with both sides of the coin. I've seen women abused by my father, and I've seen women throughout my career held back due to men. So I've witnessed the damage it does, and I've worked with so many women as I've gone through my career. And especially of late, where I'm fortunate now to work with some extraordinary women. Yeah. Absolutely, I mean, they're extraordinary women. And yet they're still wondering what that next level might be. They're still wondering, do they want to keep going? Because it's a battle. And, I work with many women at the moment at whole different levels throughout their career and hierarchy in organizations who are choosing to stay and fight, who are choosing to be the flag bearer for the women who are going to be following them. And it's the greatest privilege I have in working with these women to support them in that fight. Because I can, as appalling as it sounds, I help women to speak men. And when I hear women say, but he just wants fact, what I've learned to say now is, well, imagine that he's speaking a different language, like German. If you have a German colleague, or a German boss, and you're English, you don't have to become a German, but it would be really helpful if you learned to speak German so that they don't have to do the translation of what you actually mean. And then when you finish speaking German, you come back and you speak Lydia, or you speak Claire, or whatever your name, you just speak yourself. And then if there's another colleague who's very, very flowery in their language and you're quite precise, well, just imagine that they're French. Just if you could speak French to them, it would help them with their translation service. You speak their language. And so when I say I help women speak men, obviously that's far too simplified. But my experience has shown me that where women are really struggling with male counterparts, male superiors, male colleagues, men in general, in a specific position, my upbringing has allowed me to understand pretty much most of the time different ways in which they can position and different ways in which they can speak and behave that just makes it easier for them to get their point across and thus be heard without losing who they are. And that's the critical part.
Before we jump into that now, my new book has just hit bestseller on 2 categories called Extraordinary, Stephen Gillen, The Search for a Life Worth Living.
We need to help men unlearn the most damaging upbringing messages that they've had, which is the patriarchy. There's this idea that the patriarchy damages women only. It doesn't. It probably causes more damage to men than it does to anybody else, because it means that as men, we only operate with a fraction of our emotional intelligence. We only operate with part of our full emotional range. And it keeps us very rigid, and it's deeply unhelpful, it's deeply unhealthy. And it makes for in my experience, it makes for deeply unhappy people pretending to be happy. It's the old boys club. Yeah, I just have to be with my male friends in the club and we have a wonderful time. What's it hiding? What's it masking? And certainly the men that I work with, the very successful men that I work with, when I start scratching the surface, what you see behind the scenes is not what they present. And there's deep unhappiness, there's guilt, there's shame, because they know that they are using excuses not to work. And this is deeply profound. So when we talk about healing the divide, which is my sort of life's mission, if you like, and the controversial program that I have, which is women, stop taking shit from insecure men, so that you can get the job you're worthy of and you can attract the partner who's worthy of you. It's very controversial, and of course it's only half of the coin, half the story, as you've said. The other half is helping to teach the men how to unlearn the behaviors which are causing the damage and to become more emotional, to become gentler. Gentleness is strength if you don't apologize.
Vulnerability is definitely strength when you have a depth and know how that translates and how that works.
But the world needs the women to be in an ascendancy, not over men, but with parity with men. And that's never going to happen, in my experience, if they are waiting for the men to say yes, because the men are too comfortable. Insecure men are comfortable not having to have this conversation. They're comfortable not having women say, what about me? There are so many things that are currently out of balance. Right or wrong, let's take that away. They're just out of balance. The balance is that the male are in the ascendancy and the females aren't. And therefore, somehow around the world, we need to increase the standing and the influence of the women and all of the qualities that they bring. And we need to somehow get the parity so that men and women, masculine, feminine, call it what you like, that we have parity, that we have equity, where all views are welcome, all views are listened to, and the greatest qualities of both can come together to create a world which is more sustainable, because at the moment we're heading to a cliff. So, and none of us have the answer to everything, and I wouldn't dream of saying, every woman in the world come to me, I've got the answer. Every man in the world come to me, I have the answer. I don't. But I do have 35 years of specifically learning in this field. I've got 54 years of witnessing it, and I know from the work that I do that I can support my part of the world to feel more empowered, to help people become more empowered in themselves. And by that I mean they become who they are, more of who they truly are, not who they think they have to be in order to be acceptable. And that's men and women across the board. Why I'm focusing on women at the moment is because that's the calling, that's the demand, those are the people coming into my life to say, James, can you please help? I've got a $50 million business, I'm being bought out, I've got huge success. What do I do next? I want to go and do this, I want to go and do that. I've got a Chinese lady at the moment I'm working with whose mother was very successful back in China financially. Now you imagine that, a female hugely successful in our parents' generation back in China. Just how tough and ruthless did that woman have to be? Well, the answer is extraordinarily. And her daughter has inherited those gifts, but is terrified that she won't be able to have a relationship if she follows her passion, her dream to become super successful, because her mother didn't. And yet here she is, an amazing girl, young lady now, an amazing person with incredible work ethic, intelligence, brilliance, worried that she wants to have a relationship. And the privilege I have with her is that I'm helping her realize that the marriage that she's in is brilliant for her, and that she doesn't have to lose it because she wants to become financially the breadwinner, the most successful person, and fulfill her dream.
The next. Well, look, you can have it all, you know, and I've seen this without going into it, but you can have it all, and this is one example of how that is really possible. As I've said, James, thank you for coming on, my friend.
Always
again.
a pleasure.
People love this stuff. It's short, it's sharp, it's punchy, it's to the point. Where can people find you then? You know, if they wanted to reach out to you, I know you're very busy, but very, very approachable too. You know, and I know you speak to everyone. Where
so they can
find
come
you?
to me through the website. You know, my website, which is jamesdakin.co.uk, and then they can go to the contact me page and they'll find me there, or they can have a look at what I'm about, see some videos, see some other bits about me.
Yeah, and this is the stuff, you know, there's great stuff on there. This guy is $1 billion coach, I tell you. He's a very good friend of mine. He's the real deal, you know. I kid you not, some of the people he knows, the contacts he have, amazing. But as a human being, he's a really well person. And his skills and his depth of knowledge and experience in this area are second to none, I have to say. So, thanks for watching this segment again of Publicity Hound and more on how to build $1 billion business, $1 million business, be successful, progressive in your life, and really have it all. Take care now, guys. God bless, and I'll see you soon.